The last cabin on Blackwater Trail. People hike the Blackwater Trail in Colorado for the breathtaking views, but locals warn new campers never to stay in the last cabin, the one that doesn't appear on any official park map. The trip that shouldn't have happened. People come to the Colorado Highlands to breathe fresh mountain air, escape the city, and hit reset on their lives. But for me, Jake, and Lily, this weekend getaway was more of a last-minute adventure than a planned escape. We decided to skip the usual tourist spots and go somewhere remote, quiet, untouched. That's how we ended up on the Blackwater Trail, unaware that this hike might be more than we bargained for. Blackwater Trail is well known. But when we stopped at the ranger station, the vibe was off. The rangers were polite, but their smiles didn't reach their eyes. One older ranger, gray-bearded and tired-looking, handed us a map and said, "Stick to the official trail. Don't wander off. And whatever you do, don't follow any of the old wooden signs. They're not on the map for a reason." We laughed it off. Jake whispered, "They just want tourists to turn back early?" Lily nodded, and I shrugged. We were 3 adults. We could handle a little adventure, right? The trail started out perfectly normal. The air was crisp. Sunlight filtered through the pines, and a creek trickled somewhere below, making the perfect soundtrack. We took pictures, cracked jokes, and laughed at how peaceful it was. For a moment, it felt like the world had disappeared, leaving just us 3 alone in nature. But then things started to feel off. The birds went quiet. The wind felt muted, almost like it had been swallowed by the forest itself. Lily noticed first. It's weirdly silent. Too silent. We tried to brush it off, chalking it up to being deep in the mountains, but I couldn't shake the feeling that someone, or something, was watching. Jake thought he heard footsteps behind us, but when we turned, the trail was empty. Still stubborn as we were, we kept moving. The sun was starting to dip lower, and shadows stretched long across the trail. That's when I first noticed the feeling of being watched. The ranger's warning seemed silly at first, but now they lingered in my mind. Blackwater Trail wasn't just a peaceful hike. It had a presence, something that knew we were here. And as the sun began to set, I realized we were about to find the first sign of it. A sign that wasn't on any map. We thought the warning signs were a joke, but an hour later, we came across a wooden sign pointing to a place that shouldn't exist. The sign that wasn't supposed to exist. As we rounded a bend in the trail, the temperature dropped noticeably. The sunlight barely reached through the thickening canopy, making the forest feel heavier, almost suffocating. Something in the air shifted. It was subtle, but we all felt it, like the trail was holding its breath. Then Lily froze mid-step, her eyes fixed on something ahead. "Do you guys see that?" she whispered. I squinted through the shadows and noticed it. An old wooden sign, half buried under fallen leaves and debris. The wood was weathered, darkened with age, and covered in moss. Yet somehow the words were still legible. "Cabin, 0.4 miles. That dem calf. Dear." We exchanged nervous glances. The style of the sign was old-fashioned, definitely not part of the official trail, and the map we picked up at the ranger station didn't show any cabins along this route. Jake, ever the skeptic, reached out to touch the sign. Maybe it's an old ranger cabin. Could be abandoned, but it's probably safe, he said, trying to sound confident. Lily shook her head. The ranger told us not to follow any old wooden signs. I felt uneasy, but curiosity won over caution. We decided to see what was up the path. A quick look, and then we'd turn back. The trail became rougher as we followed the sign. The dirt path narrowed, roots and rocks making every step tricky. The trees seemed to lean inward, casting strange shadows that flickered unnaturally in the dim light. Then we heard it, a soft hoot close by. Owls aren't usually active during the day, and this one sounded unnervingly close, almost deliberate. We froze, scanning the branches, but nothing moved. A few minutes later, we reached a small clearing. The air here was colder, heavier, and an unsettling sense of being watched washed over us. Between two trees, another weathered sign appeared, barely legible. "Not safe ahead." This time, none of us could joke it off. Jake forced a smile. "Maybe someone's just messing with hikers," he said, but even he didn't sound convinced. We walked cautiously, half expecting something to jump out at us, and then we saw it, a black moss-covered cabin, its sagging roof blending eerily into the surrounding forest. It looked abandoned at first glance, but the air around it felt alive, charged. Something about the way it sat there, silent and still, made our stomachs twist. We couldn't see anyone, but instinctively we knew. This cabin wasn't on any map for a reason. Fire. Its exterior alone was enough to send chills down our spines. But what we found inside the cabin was far worse, and it was watching us even before we stepped through the door. Inside the cabin that shouldn't exist. Sometimes a place warns you before you even enter. This cabin on Blackwater Trail was one of those places. Standing in front of it, the blackened exterior looked almost burned, though there were no fresh scorch marks. Moss hung from the beams like thick curtains, and the windows were coated with dust. But strangely, the dust seemed untouched. As we hesitated, Jake reached for the door. It creaked open slowly as if inviting us in, or warning us not to. We exchanged uneasy glances but stepped inside. What hit us first was how clean it was. The floorboards were polished, the furniture perfectly arranged. A table in the center had no dust, and chairs were neatly aligned, almost as if someone had just left. This was supposed to be abandoned, but it looked lived in. Lily whispered, "This doesn't look abandoned at all." And she was right. To the right, a narrow hallway exhaled cold air, unnatural in its intensity. On the left, a single shelf was empty except for one object, an old metal lantern. But the strangest thing was on the table. A Polaroid camera, old and yellowed with age. Next to it, a freshly developed photo. My stomach dropped as I picked it up. It was us. Exactly how we were standing outside, our backpacks, jackets, even our poses matched perfectly. But we hadn't taken this photo. Jake's voice cracked. Who would even do this?" The silence in the cabin suddenly became suffocating. Lily tried to open her phone to use the camera, but it wouldn't work. I don't want to be here," she said, voice trembling. And then the door slammed shut behind us. We froze. Jake tried to open it. It was locked from the inside. I ran to the windows. Every single one was nailed shut. It was like the cabin had a mind of its own, determined to keep us inside. Then, from the hallway, we heard it. Soft, dragging footsteps. Slow. Purposeful. We couldn't see anyone, but the sound came closer. And then the camera on the table clicked on its own. Another Polaroid slipped out, landing on the floor. This one showed the cabin's interior and a dark silhouette standing in the doorway. It was human-shaped, but wrong. The proportions were off, and its features were twisted in a way that made your skin crawl. We realized in that moment that we weren't alone. Whatever this was, it was inside the cabin with us. And it had been waiting. Shadows weren't just in the photos. They were moving across the corners of the cabin. And then we understood. It wasn't just watching us. It was learning us. The visitor who walked like a human, but wasn't. The cabin felt alive. Not cozy, alive, like the walls themselves were aware of our presence. The air was thick, each breath heavy and wet. Floorboards beneath our feet vibrated faintly like a slow heartbeat running through the cabin. We huddled near the fireplace. Lily knelt. Jake gripped the table. Mason trembled quietly. Silence pressed down on us, louder than the crackling fire. Then it started. Footsteps. Soft at first, crunching on gravel outside, then dragging across the cabin floor. Slow, measured. Each step was deliberate, testing, observing. Then came the voice. Human, yet warped and impossible to place. Come out. The cabin is not meant for you. We froze. The sound came from outside, but no one could be there. The deck was broken, uneven, and the forest beyond pitch black. Jake's eyes darted to a dusty leather journal. Flipping through it, he revealed decades-old handwriting. If you hear it speak, do not answer. Do not open the door after midnight. It copies faces. It copies voices. It wears them like skin. If you look at it, it learns you. The last line made our stomachs turn. It takes the face of the one you trust most. Exactly then, the windows rattled with a knock, slow at first, then louder, insistent. A voice followed. Hey guys, it's me. Let me in. It sounded exactly like Mason. But Mason sat right beside me, shaking and tearful. Panic hit. That distorted visitor wasn't just mimicking voices, it was wearing them. Lily's voice joined in, pleading, though she was right in front of us. Jake, why won't you come out? Please, please open the door. Scratching noises emerged from the corners, low, deliberate, like something on all fours. Desperate, Lily threw a log into the fireplace. Flames roared. Behind the journal, a note read, "It hates light." Shadows shrank. Movement paused. We thought we were safe. But as midnight passed, the floorboards shivered again. Whatever was outside or inside was still here, watching. And we realized it didn't just want to scare us. It wanted to replace us. Our first defense was light, but even the flames couldn't hold it off forever. And as midnight fully passed, we understood the terrifying truth. It was already inside. The thing that wore our voices. The cabin was suffocating. Shadows stretched unnaturally, and the fireplace flickered weakly. Midnight had passed. The silence outside was oppressive. Every moment here taught us. The longer we stayed, the more it learned. Then the floorboards creaked, a slow, dragging sound, and then voices. Our voices. "Help me? Guys, please." It sounded exactly like Lily. She was right there beside me. Jake shouted, panic cracking his voice. "Don't respond! Don't answer it!" Then from the corner came Jake's own voice. "Open the door. Please. I'm out here." Jake froze. His face drained. "It's copying me. It sounds exactly like me." Before he could finish, my own voice echoed from the fireplace side. "Kay, come on. Let me in." It wasn't me. The journal's warning repeated in my mind. It copies faces. It copies voices. It wears them like skin. Scratching began again. Frantic now. Every sound, every whisper perfectly imitated us. Then I saw it. A faint reflection in the window's glass. A human face, but wrong. Eyes misaligned. Smile stretched too wide. Skin stretched over the features like a mask. It wasn't imitating. It was wearing us. Lily tried to scream, but clamped her hands over her mouth. The cabin seemed alive, trapping us. We clustered the lanterns and logs into a circle. Flames roared, pushing shadows back. The scratching slowed, but never fully stopped. We realized the truth. This cabin was more than haunted. It was a predator. And we were the prey. The imitation, the whispers, the shadows, it was all a test. Flames couldn't last forever. When the fire died, it would step out. And the thing that had been mimicking us would finally wear our faces completely. The fire was our only defense, but the fuel was running low. And when it dies, we realized with sinking horror, whatever was in the cabin would finally choose whose face it would wear first. Escape. Before dawn. The cabin was unbearable. Shadows stretched. Flames flickered weakly. Midnight had passed, and we knew staying longer meant the thing would learn every detail about us. Mason whispered, "The fuel. It's almost gone." Lily checked the lantern. Sparks, barely enough light. Our last defense, the only thing keeping it at bay, was fading. The floorboards trembled. Footsteps, inside this time, slow, deliberate, moving closer. Voices followed, distorted, perfectly mimicking us. "Open the door. Let me in." Jake froze. The voice sounded exactly like him. Lily's voice whispered from across the room, though she was right in front of me. And then mine echoed. We understood. It didn't just mimic, it wore our voices, our identities like a mask. Desperate, we huddled lanterns and logs into one bright circle. Flames roared, shadows shrank back. Then daylight peeked through the cracks in the ceiling. The journal's warning proved true. First light ends its hold. Floorboards stopped trembling. Voices stopped. Knocking ceased. We crawled toward the door. It clicked, unlocked. We bolted into the trail, adrenaline fueling every step. Behind us, the cabin blended into the forest, almost invisible. At the ranger station, breathless, we showed the Polaroid. It was blank, not a trace of shadow or silhouette, just a note. It still knows your faces. Words failed. One thing was clear. Some places in the mountains aren't abandoned. They watch, they learn, and some wait decades for the right hikers. The Blackwater Trail is beautiful, peaceful. But if you ever see an old wooden sign pointing to a cabin that isn't on any map, keep walking. Don't stop. Don't look back. And if a Polaroid appears in your hands with your face on it, remember, it knows you. And it's waiting. Some places in the mountains are not abandoned. They watch. They learn. And sometimes they wait decades for the right hikers to arrive.